Okay, I'm on this one.
Yeah, that's because
I'm on my phone.
Okay.
So, but the one on John's computer, if we click on, nothing happens.
and it also has us as the host of the event. It says.
I've got you now. I can see you on the phone.
Yep.
Hey, can you turn your phone to portrait mode, Nancy?
I can't.
Let's see.
It'd be hard to hold it at that level, though.
Yeah. Okay, so the computer is not letting you in for some reason.
Let's shut it down and try it
Just
again.
show it to him.
I did.
It's doing that, and when we try to click,
Or maybe click onto the left,
Where it says live.
on the other side of that same square. Where
here,
when you click there, is that anything? No.
Anywhere we click, nothing happens.
That's so interesting. You should be able to get in.
Why don't you shut it down and reopen it, John?
So we are, just so you know, let's see. We are currently streaming live because I had to start the live stream early.
Okay.
So how us sorting this out is going to be on display for people, but we'll chop it off later.
Sure.
That's fine.
Won't be
Hi,
the
anybody
first
that's
time.
joining us, yeah.
Can you just, I can't see over to what appears to be the left of your screen. Yeah. That's interesting. Should be a way for you to join that.
Enter studio.
Yeah, that's what you need to do. There you go. Now you're in.
Oh, hang on a second.
Okay.
Let's not declare victory prematurely.
For fun.
Hang on a second.
Yeah, that's what came in on mine.
I'm wrong.
I think we did it.
Okay. Hey, there you are. Good to see you guys. Okay, let's see.
Has it started snowing out there yet, Tim?
No, no, not yet.
Okay.
But soon enough, Nancy, soon enough. I don't think it snows until like late October, early November.
To when?
Late October, early November.
Yeah.
So we've got time.
Will we be able to see comments here, Tim?
Yeah, if you see on the right, there's a button that says chat. If you click on chat, you can see people are already saying hello.
Oh, very cool. Wow.
Good morning, everybody.
So we'll spend another 3 minutes before I start the countdown.
That's Mark from Portugal.
I know, but it's not Mark Garner, is it? Because it's Mark Garner, unless Mark Garner is now
that
going
is
by
Mark
Mark
Garner.
Art. I bet he is because he's an artist.
Hi, Kara. Hi, Terry.
So fun.
Braden. Good morning.
Mm-hmm.
From Arkansas.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. They're just reading glasses, but
Hey, Courtney's having coffee and peanut butter toast.
yay.
That's what we already had.
Best way to start the day.
Oh man, Scott, so good to see your name.
Oh, Scott.
Yep.
Yeah.
We had a fabulous time getting to see you guys this last week.
Wendy from Oklahoma, Ashley from Illinois.
Man.
Nancy, didn't you once say that you go to bed thinking about peanut butter toast?
And tea and hot tea.
And hot tea.
Yep. Which I'm going to go get some hot tea right now. I do.
Nice.
Yep.
That's great.
Yeah, for anybody who follows Enneagram, it's fun to be married to a 7. Just many wonderful things.
Most days.
Yeah, most days.
Not always.
Most days.
Yeah.
I suppose that could be true for any Enneagram number.
Hey, Shauna Pilgrim, you're on the roads. I hope you're having a fun time, whatever road you're on.
Nice.
Yep.
Tuning in from Northern Ireland, Jeff McGrath.
Oh man, I'm ready for a trip to Ireland.
That was lovely.
Yep.
Become new on the road, John. Let's shoot
Oh,
an
man.
Come new on the road.
Whoa.
do a series in Ireland.
A lot.
Ireland.
Wow. No, that would be very cool.
John, what is your Enneagram? Braden is asking.
Often on different kind of temperament tests, I'll feel like I'm kind of a tweener. I'm not exactly sure. But with Enneagram, I'm a strong 3. So definitely a 3 and pretty much with a 4 wing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And Tim and Nancy are both 7s. So many of the people in my life are 7s.
Yes, yes.
Yep.
We're both 7s.
I know. That adds a lot of joy.
All right, I'm gonna roll this countdown. It's about a 10-minute countdown, and then we'll kind of dive in to the content. And I'll just host it, John, so I can do the initial welcome, and then I can hand it over to you. You can say anything you want. I've got questions from people that we can look at.
Wonderful.
And I've got a few other agenda items just to let people know about.
Okay. When you turn it over to us, I'll talk for a while. Just ramble. Nancy talk for a while.
Good morning, Charlotte.
And then we'll come back in. Oh man, Charlotte's very good to see your name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. John, you're going to see in this countdown a lot of yourself. I know that will make you
That would be horrible.
a little bit uncomfortable.
Muted or
well.
put the screen down or something. So while the countdown's going on, we will not be visible to everybody at that time, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right, let's give it a shot. Here we go.
Okay. Fact is, every day we're all moving in the direction of a character of one sort or another.
There's 2 types of apology. There's the I'm sorry that you didn't like what I said.
I'm sorry you're so sensitive.
Or that you're so sensitive, exactly.
Yeah. A hypocrite has no intention of becoming what he's pretending to be. But when I act as if, I have a different posture of the will. My goal now is not to fool other people and make them think I'm different than I actually am. I'm living with a surrendered will. I want to become an honest person.
One of the biggest findings in positive psychology is that discovering new ways to use your signature strength to deploy it in a different way every day is one of the greatest things you can do for character growth.
Now, if while I read that list of 24 traits, you found yourself saying, that's me, after every single one of them, probably humility is not going to be at the top of the list.
Well, the question, if you like, that I was asking myself about people started to change. So it went from what's wrong with this person? Question changed into what is this person missing?
A 5-year-old that I know goes into his 1-year-old sister's room with a single message. Hey sister, enthusiasm. I could use curiosity in bad ways. I could even use patience in bad ways. I could use courage in bad ways, but not love. One of the primary characteristics of Jesus is he never taught only for information. He always taught for the sake of life transformation. There is a remarkable picture. It was taken in 1936. In this picture, you can see in the full version of it, hundreds of workers, or in a more closely cropped one, a bunch of workers, and they're all giving the Nazi salute except one man who is standing there with his arms folded across his chest, deliberately not giving it.
Thank you, Professor. I'll take it from here. My thoughts are, number 1, I'm not going to do my Harry Carey impression.
Would you eat the moon
pay extra
if it
for
was
that?
made of green cheese?
Would you? I would.
It's a simple question.
Spare ribs and some barbecue sauce.
We tend to associate with wisdom with age. One of the interesting and sobering findings is that there was not a correlation between the exercise of wisdom and wisdom-related tasks and how old somebody is. When you're facing a difficult situation, if you avoid it, if you don't look it square in the eye, if you wimp out, if you run away, even if things turn out well, your sense of well-being, esteem goes down. We hear that so often. Run after your passion, follow your bliss. You do not get to set the pathways of your life and the circumstances that you will inhabit, and neither do I. There is a race that has been set before me, and it involves my body and my genes and my family and other people around me and this world in which I live.
People will ask me when they first encounter me talking about character strengths, to say, where is God in all this? And I guess my experience is exactly what you've described, which is the moment I try to be hopeful, grateful, self-controlled, humble, etc., I immediately run into my inability to do it.
We all have a tendency to want to expand ourselves, to grow more competent, to expand our knowledge, to expand our skills, to expand our love and our care for other people and our joy. But here's the strange thing, actually, in order to expand ourselves, we have to empty ourselves and make space for another person. Research indicates self-estimated intellectual abilities do not lie in a close relationship to actual intellectual abilities. To bring creativity into our everyday life, sometimes that happens when we combine things that nobody else would have combined before. So like disco and jazz put together and you get funk, or spirituals and rock put together and you get blues, or country and rap, you put them together and you get crap.
There'll be an organization where there's a leader there, and the message the leader is communicating, although they wouldn't say it in so many words, is, I'm the one that makes this extraordinary. And if I weren't here, it wouldn't exist like this.
It's just such an interesting version of insecurity. Such an interesting version of insecurity.
Yeah.
Why would you need to do that? I will tell people all the time, I'm never the smartest person in the room, even if I go into a room by myself.
There's a reason why forgiveness is so much at the core of the Christian faith and the spiritual life. To become a truly forgiving person involves all of the character qualities and skills and help from God that's needed to become a truly good person.
The overall picture that was emerging was a picture of what I call mixed character, where we have some good sides to our character. In some situations, we will rise to the challenge and say, help a stranger in need. But in other situations, this is the mixed part of it, the unfortunate part of it, we will let self-interest get in the way of doing what we morally should do, the right thing.
A deep commitment to looking with unblinking courage and honesty and insight at reality, and then not being passive, but saying, I will chart my course, not only based on good intentions, but also what will be the best, most skillful, most courageous way to navigate reality, including other people.
But what I've come to learn is that being rooted and grounded in Christ frees us. It frees us to be curious.
You know, you might think about this. The right order of life is that my will tells my mind what to do, and my mind tells my body what to do, my body obeys it. When I get messed up, my body is in charge, my appetites, and my mind becomes obsessed with that, and then my will gets enslaved to whatever my appetites are.
Exposed and vulnerable. Two things we avoid and lean away from that are utterly necessary for great teamwork.
What's fascinating when we get to fruit of the Spirit is it's not fruits of the Spirit, it's fruit of the Spirit. It's this single idea that if you have the Spirit, then peace, kindness, self-control, love, all these things come together in a unity.
God is a God who loves beauty. Beauty, Dallas Willard says, is goodness made manifest to the senses.
What is it that enables someone to overcome hardship? What's greater than that? The Stoics would say that's reason. Our ability to understand and to select the attitude that I take. Seneca talked about how they can imprison you, but that does not confine you. They can mutilate you, but that does not torture you. That does not stop you. They can enslave you, but that does not impede you, because you can select your inner attitude. It is the self that clings to reason that is able to transcend suffering. Now, that brings us to the Apostle Paul.
Jesus is the firstborn, but here we see someone who doesn't use that prerogative, his power and his privilege for his own self, but he pours himself out and is constantly looking for those who are poor, for those who are oppressed, for those who are disregarded, for the prisoner, to be able to love them.
People much more than in the past desire to pursue fame. Nearly twice as many, he writes, say that they would rather be a celebrity's personal assistant, for example, Justin Bieber's, than the president of Harvard.
Though Brooks writes, to be fair, I'm pretty sure the president of Harvard would rather be Justin Bieber's personal assistant. Gray hairs, rotten teeth, dim eyes, trembling joints, short breath, stiff limbs, wrinkled skin, short memory, decayed appetite. And in our day, we say, we can do something about that. You don't have to go through that. But Taylor reminds us what wise people have always known, that life is very, very short.
When I think I know one thing about somebody, and then I learn that something completely different is the case.
Condoleezza Rice one time was being interviewed by Tim Russert. He asked her a question, and she suddenly made the sign of the cross. And he asked her, did you just make the sign of the cross? And she said, yeah, when I'm with you, I got to bring out the big guns. Generosity means learning to trust in the reality of the kingdom, that just like money is real, the kingdom is real. And when we give, we are trusting God and we are stepping into a deeper reality. The world needs you. And your raw material is part of the package, and there are blessings in it. There are ways that has been damaged and dinged because physical creation has fallen and our environment has fallen. But you are not just a product of nature and nurture. You have a choice.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name's Tim. I'm the producer, the behind the scenes buddy really at Become New. And I'm here with John and Nancy. Good morning, John, Nancy. How you guys doing?
Good. It was fun to see Sally and Joan saying hi to each other. And Susan, if you're not at Safeway, you need to let us know where you're at now, please.
And Daniela from Italy, we got to figure out how to be in touch with you. So we'll talk to Tim about that.
Yeah.
Yep. Excellent. Well, it's good to have you both. We're excited to wrap up this series, Character, which we just kind of got a blow by blow. I loved putting together all those little intro clips.
You do that well.
Such good content throughout this whole series, and I know people have been loving it. If you're just tuning in for the first time and you're new to Become New, just want to let you know that we're a community of folks who are seeking to grow spiritually one day at a time. And we're united not by our strengths, but really by our recognition of inadequacy and our need for help. John, you'll say often, I can't, God can, I think I'll let him. And that's sort of the motto of this little motley crew of folks online. And it's good to be together today. So we're going to talk about character a little more. You've got some things to share. We've got some questions from viewers. And then we're going to talk about what's coming up next and have a few sort of PSAs at the end. But that's it for me for now. So glad to be here. John, Nancy, welcome. I'll hand it over to you guys.
It's just so moving to read from all of you all around the world.
I'm going to keep doing that while you talk. I love this part
you love
so
to
much.
multitask. You particularly love to multitask when I'm talking.
Definitely.
So we're wrapping up this series on character that's been so good and so central to what we're doing. As you may know, the name for what we're doing, Become New, is taken from that statement that Dallas Willard would often repeat, that the main thing God gets out of your life is the person you become. And that's the main thing you get out of your life. And that's what we take with us into eternity. And character is another way of talking about the person that we become. Sometimes when parents are asked, what do you hope for your children? Their most common response is, I want my kids to be happy. But that's not the best response. The best response, what we really want for our children, is that they grow up to be people of good character. This I was reading recently is from a man who was a monk archbishop in the Eastern Orthodox Church in the 20th century, Anthony Bloom. His father lost everything in the Russian Revolution back before the First World War. And he says when he's an old man, I remember my father saying to me once after a holiday, I worried about you. And I said, did you think I'd had an accident? And he said, that would have meant nothing, even if you had been killed. I thought you had lost your integrity. Wow. Another time, he said to me, always remember that whether you are alive or dead matters nothing. Whether you are alive or dead matters nothing. What matters is what you live for and what you are prepared to die for. And so the encouragement for today, as we wrap up for this series, and we tried this time around to spend a little bit more time on the wrap up, reflection, review, so that it can get embedded really deeply in us. Thanks for that suggestion, Ron. Today, the main thing that I want to say that we want to talk about is become a student of character. And be constantly looking at each situation in life and asking, how does my response reveal my character? And how can I use this situation to develop my character? And I wanted to read a few sentences from kind of a remarkable book. It's by Robert McKee. It's called Story. You might remember this if you've listened for a while. He's kind of the dean of screenwriters, but you can't get into story without getting into character. And he makes a distinction here that I thought was really helpful. He talks about characterization or characteristics versus character. Characterization, he says, is the sum total of all the observable qualities of a human being, everything knowable through looking at him: age, IQ, sex, sexuality, speech, gesture, home, car, dress, education, personality, all the aspects of humanity we could know by taking notes on somebody. And it's very striking. He says this is what is seen. The Bible makes a distinction between what is seen and what is unseen often. And he's doing this from a very secular perspective. He goes on, beneath the surface of characteristics or characterization, regardless of appearance, who is this person? At the heart of his or her humanity, what will we find? Loving or cruel, generous or selfish, strong or weak, courageous or cowardly. The only way to know the truth is to witness him or her make choices under pressure, to take one action or another in the pursuit of their desire. As they choose, they are. Pressure is essential. Choices made when nothing is at risk means little. If character chooses to tell the truth in a situation where telling a lie would gain them nothing, the choice is trivial, the moment expresses nothing. But if the same character insists on telling the truth when a lie would save their life, then we sense that honesty is at the core of their character. And then he sets up a really interesting scenario where there's two characters. One is a woman who cleans houses to make a living. She's an alien. She's in the country illegally. She's quite shy and modest. The other is a very wealthy neurosurgeon driving a Porsche. In front of them, suddenly a school bus flips and starts to burn, and children are at risk. What decision do they make in that moment? That's going to reveal their character, even though their characteristics are so different from each other. And I was thinking when I read that, what's another story about someone who is hurt on a road and different characters walk down that road and witness that scene? And of course, that's the story of the Good Samaritan that Jesus, in his brilliance as a teacher, told 2,000 years ago. And they have quite different characteristics. A priest and a Levite go on, so we would think they would help, but they don't. And then a Samaritan, those were despised people. Israelites thought they would be people of bad character, but that person actually stops and reveals an unseen goodness that comes as a surprise. Here's the last paragraph I'll read, and then you can talk. The revelation of true character, in contrast or contradiction to characterization, is fundamental to every story. Life teaches this grand principle: what seems is not what is. People are not what they appear to be. A hidden nature waits, concealed behind a facade of traits. No matter what they say, no matter how they comport themselves, the only way we ever come to know characters in depth is through their choices under pressure. And one of the classic expressions of this in Scripture is in 1 Samuel, I think it's chapter 16, verse 7, when a prophet named Samuel is looking at the children of a man named Jethro, and he sees the first one and is convinced this has to be the king because he looks like a king. And God's statement to him is, no, pay no attention to his outer appearance. Human beings notice the outward appearance. God looks at the heart. And that's precisely at the unseen dimension of the character that's being formed in us all the time. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. That's this character. This character is just the reality of the kingdom coming to life inside me.
And I think, sorry, I have a little bit of laryngitis. I think
I kind of like it though.
talk as much.
No. That just makes your voice sound cool.
Okay, great. Part of what John's talking about that I want to drive home today is how the difference between character formation and behavioral modification, and how it is so much easier to do the outward thing. And I think a lot of versions of Christianity can encourage us to do the outward thing. But Jesus is clear in the New Testament and all throughout the Old Testament, the real change that happens, the changes that we long for, are really an inside job. And so when behavioral modification fails us, then we're left with, okay, how do I go inside? When our kids were young, one of the things I used to say to them was, what you do when you're disappointed, when you don't get what you want, is probably one of the truest tests of your character. And that goes a bit to what John was talking about with Robert in this book, is when I'm under pressure, what gets revealed. I think COVID was a huge revealer of what was in all of us. When I used to work with Pat Lencioni, he would talk about core values are not values unless they inflict pain. And when they inflict pain, you can call them a core value. And so I think this journey towards character development needs to be an inside out job. It needs to happen when we're in pain or under pressure. We need to be students of it everywhere. So during COVID, one of us goes to sleep very, very early in the evening, like 8 o'clock or 8:30 sometimes. And we live in a little studio with a Murphy bed, so I can't stay up with a light on reading. So
that's because he's got to get up early, Nancy, and prepare the talk for all of us.
That's fair, because one of us is still in bed at 5 o'clock in the morning and the other one's not. But my dilemma at night, Tim, is like many of you, I just spent a lot more time reading and watching things on my phone. And I noticed two things. Almost without exception, every series I watched, every movie I watched that were not Christian had the story of the gospel in them. Every single one of them. People are made in the image of God. They can't help themselves. So to look in all these places you wouldn't expect to find lessons in character. There's a series I just watched a couple of months ago. I'm not going to tell you what it was because most of you would be deeply offended by the language in it and so many things that are definitely not Christian. But there's 2 seasons. And in the first season, there's a number of characters. One in particular, it's not that you hate him, you just don't like him very much. He feels like a bit throwaway character. You don't pay much attention to him. He's pretty grumpy. He rarely does the right thing. He's pretty self-absorbed. And then over the season 2, when you're not paying attention, imperceptibly, something starts shifting inside of him. And he gets moved away from a job that he needs to a job he hates. And in the middle of him fighting that, there comes a moment where he is asked to deeply serve somebody. And you just think that's it. He's going to blow up and walk out. And in that moment, very slowly over his face comes a change in his expression. And he reluctantly goes and does it. And in that moment, something snaps alive in him that is so remarkably beautiful. And his character starts changing. He still holds on to some of the junk. And I think that's another thing, is like, as we go on this journey to character and following Jesus, it's not a one and done. Right. It's not a false sweep in our life and then we're rid of that old way.
It's not.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That was what the end of this series was going to be.
The secret.
False promises.
Yeah.
But watching this character transform in a setting that had nothing to do with God, just for me, affected me deeply to say he's everywhere. There's nowhere I can't look where there aren't lessons of character. And then one other thing I would say is to be a student of character in others is when you see it. Oh, Ron Bryant. Did you
Just
know?
keep talking, Nance.
To be a student of character, when you see it in other people, call it out. It will make you want it more for yourself.
Yeah.
Whether it's somebody you don't know that's behind a desk or at a shop or at a fast food place or at your office, just stop and say, hey, I've been looking at these 24 different qualities. Or you don't even need to say that. Just say, you show gratitude in pretty remarkable ways. I'm going to be thinking about that interaction I just saw you had. When you call it out in other people, it kind of creates a longing inside of you to be more like Jesus.
There's a wonderful aspect to character. We can envy people's characteristics. So I can envy how attractive you are, or how smart you are, or how rich you are. We can't actually envy character. We can admire it.
I think you can.
Yeah. No, you can't.
Well, actually, you're wrong, but thanks for playing.
If you think about something like this person is deeply honest, or this person is very loving, I wish I was more that way, but there's something good in that wishing and in the wanting to be rich or smart or whatever like them that can easily get tainted. It's hard to taint the genuine wishing for character if that's really there. Now, it's different if I want a reputation for honesty, or I'd like other people to think that I'm this way. But if I genuinely want to be honest, or genuinely am inspired by your integrity or your kindness, and I want that more, that moves us in the right direction, and we'll just keep on going.
It does move us in the right direction. But if you're just a worse person than you, I can be jealous of somebody's good character. Yeah, it's like when people say you can't be afraid and pray at the same time. It's like,
no, it's not like that at all.
Are you kidding me?
Not at all.
We'll let you guys sort that out later, and then you can tell us what you discovered.
Okay.
But I did have a question that came in actually on that kind of very subject, which was about the episode. John, if you remember, you did an episode, What Mask Will You Wear? And I had a few people chime in and say, basically, I'm paraphrasing, but what's the difference between choosing a behavior that doesn't feel authentic for character's sake and just pretending, right? So it's like, and I think I would love to hear you speak to, there is sort of the greatest goal in our culture is self-actualization right now. It seems to be like that's what everyone thinks is the answer to all of your happiness and problems. And so doing things that don't feel authentic to who I am on the inside can feel like it lacks integrity, or it's not really me. Can you just speak to that a little bit? I thought that was a great question that people sent in.
Yeah, and I think that idea of always be authentic no matter what can sometimes misguide us, because simply the fact that I sincerely have a feeling doesn't mean that I'm obligated to express it, and it may cause harm to other people. And that question of when am I seeking to do or say things even though I don't yet feel them? I'm seeking to be kind even though I don't feel kind to this person. When is that hypocrisy? And when is it just trying to move in the right direction where I'm not able to? And I wish I could remember who wrote this, because it wasn't my thought, but that the core difference is for a hypocrite, I have no intention of becoming that person. I don't intend to become a kind person or a humble person or a gentle person. I just want other people to think I'm that way to manipulate them. So hypocrisy would be like King Herod when he says to the wise man, if you find the child, tell me where he is so I can go worship him too. He had no intention of worshiping him. That's hypocrisy. Trying to move in that direction means I know right now I'm not kind in that way. I'm not humble in that way. I'm way puffed up. I think about myself. I'm self-preoccupied. But at least a part of me would really like to move in that direction. And so I can express the thoughts that a humble person would and ask God to help me move in that direction. But it really is a matter of the will. Am I willing to seek to move in that direction? Or do I have no intention to do it and I just want to create an impression to manipulate others?
Yeah. That's a great answer. And it kind of leads into another question that came in. And it's about measuring change, right? So, because is it possible for, this is kind of maybe a rhetorical question, possible for you to change what you want at that core level over time, little by little? And the question that came in was, what's a good measuring stick for change? How often should you check? Is it more like if you keep reaching toward improved character, it'll just inevitably happen? Any thoughts on that?
When I think about my own life, there would be some changes, I wish there were more, that are really evident. Like one of them is in our marriage in the early years, I would often withdraw emotionally from Nancy in really severe and hurtful ways when I felt conflicted internally. And eventually that became so painful for Nancy that about 15 years in, we had a long period of time for a year or two where we were just having to deal with that dynamic. And it became very clear to me that this issue of withdrawal wasn't about Nancy, it was about me. It was things that I needed to look at inside myself. And because of the pain and the time that got put into it, eventually I really did become different on that. And so I can tell to this day, we could be having an argument about something. And in the early years of our marriage, I would have just withdrawn. And now I'm able to stay much more connected. So I think when change is big, there are times when we can see it. A lot of times we can't. Mostly, I think it's quite a lot smaller. And that's where it's really good to be in a community with other people. That's why I love that we have this community together, and where both my relationship with Nancy, but then also people like Rick and Chuck and Kent and Jimmy were able to speak into each other's lives. And it's really good with those fully disclosing friends, not just to say, here's my temptation and struggle, where do you see something wrong in me? But also, where do you see changes in me? And Rick will sometimes say to me, John, I feel like now you will disclose about something in ways that you never would have earlier on in our friendship. And having that change named is really helpful.
That's good.
I think you can check in too often. I think you can exhaust yourself on that, pulling the car over 20 times to check the oil again to see what the level is. Part of it is just this surrender to the journey.
That's
I'm not checking in too often.
That's great wisdom. Thank you. Another thing that we talked about in this series, and you based a lot of your teaching on, John, was the VIA character strengths. And for anybody that didn't get a chance to participate, you can take that survey if you just go to viacharacter.org. But we got a question that came in on that. But before we get into that question, what are y'all's top character strengths? And if you're watching in the comments and you know your top character strengths, like your top 3, put them in the comments.
That'd be great.
But John and Nancy, do you remember yours? Or Nancy, do you know yours?
Yes. Go ahead. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Yeah. Spirituality is my top one. Love, gratitude, love of learning, and curiosity. So lest you think that all sounds really wonderful, at the bottom are prudence and courage. And
the bottom meaning the ones that you're not strong
24
in.
and 25. Yeah. And I hated that courage was down that low. But that's just part of the journey for all of us, is figuring out, and again, it doesn't necessarily mean if something's at the bottom that you're not good at it. It's just in your own wiring, that's where it comes out.
Yeah, something's got to be at the bottom.
Something's got to be at the bottom.
Something's got to be there. What about you, Nance?
My top one is spirituality also, and then zest, and then transcendence and leadership and team. How about you, Tim?
Yeah, my number 1 was leadership, and then forgiveness, appreciation of beauty and excellence, spirituality and gratitude.
And I can so see those in you.
My bottom, John, this is my top, my least most are love of learning. So we're a good team.
So we're a great team together. Yeah.
And then prudence. So you and I watch out, because
prudence was on my low
end. We're gonna just run.
Yeah.
Run to the sound of the guns. Let's go, John. Me. No, that's great. The question that came in was
for me. That's great.
Yeah, the question that came in was, now what? Now that I know my character strengths, what do I do? Should I just obsess about them? Should I just play to my strengths? Do I need to manage my weaknesses? Just any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love the idea that we will seek to be a community together that cheer each other on, help ourselves be aware of, and always trying to grow in character. And really, we'll do a lot of different series. I think we'll talk a bit about, we're going to move to forgiveness, which I'm very, very excited about. And actually, anything that anybody here does to grow as a more forgiving person is going to benefit their character. So there's really not much of anything that we will do that gets away from this. But I think to say, I will seek to be a student of character, I'm going to be more intentional. And when I'm watching stuff on TV or a movie or reading a book or looking at people in real life situations, I think always to ask, I was thinking yesterday when I was up early in the morning and looking at the moon and the morning star. It was such a gorgeous sky. And I thought, how many times my thoughts are occupied with anxiety or anger or grandiosity when I could just experience wonder and worship. And so this situation is telling me what's going on in my character.
Well, and gosh, along those lines, as John was talking, I just thought, I think we so often think in a situation like that, what I really need then is to spend my entire day in gratitude and acknowledgement. And maybe really what we get are glimpses. Maybe we get those moments that are just these little peaks, they're 20 seconds, and they become our true north to say, keep following this. And maybe sometimes glimpses are enough to say my character is going in the right direction. Of course, I'm still anxious. Of course, I still am preoccupied. But that glimpse right there was true north.
And something I love that you would talk about a lot as we would discuss this series is, this is not a series about moral self-improvement. And in many ways, the foundational text really is Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And righteousness is the character thing. But the idea there is just, what does it mean to seek first for the kingdom? Well, it's like, where do you look for your keys? You look for them everywhere. Where do you look for the kingdom? You look for it everywhere. And just like in this moment right now, we're here. There's all these comments here. God, where are you in this? What are you saying? And if I just think to look for God, he will be there. I may not always be able to see him or sense him. But in that process, I kind of surrender the will, and then my character can move in the right direction. So it's really an indirection thing where I think we grow in character mostly in response to seeing the presence of God and being helped by him, rather than, no, I got to try really hard to be more courageous and try really hard to be more honest. It's not mostly about trying really hard. It's mostly about seeking.
Yeah, that's great. Just to linger on the questions for a second longer. One question that came in, I would love to hear you respond to. This came in, I think, just 2 days ago from our text. I'll keep the sender anonymous, but it was about generosity. I struggle to give without expecting anything in return to my family. Do you have any recommendations on how to practice being generous to my wife and kids? Just to bring it into like a practical setting.
Yep. No, we were talking before starting here. Families can be the source of lots of joy, but so much pain. And we were with folks this week, and while they've been going through a difficult time, it was really good to be together. While we were with them, got a call from somebody else who's a part of our community where the family has just been the source of unspeakable pain. So I know many, many, many are walking through really deep valleys. A couple of things that have been helpful to me. John Gottman's the marriage guru, and he says a great thing in your marriage is to take 5 minutes in the morning and just ask what's going to happen in your day. And so thinking about that, I thought, well, one thing I can do is just to ask, how can I pray for you today? And it's super simple. Our kids are gone, but in the morning when Nancy and I get together here at this table, I'll try to make that one of the questions, just what's going on for today and how can I pray for you today? Another thing is just embarrassingly simple. I will feel like you naturally observe people really well, and I can live in my head and in ideas more. So I think I often have to work harder at that. And I don't know why I started doing this, but it's just been in the last year or two. I'll often look at somebody and just try to remember what clothes are they wearing. So I'll just look at Tim, and you've got on a kind of red checked flannel shirt, I think, and a t-shirt underneath.
Minnesota uniform right here.
And there's something about that practice that makes me pay attention to somebody. And if I'm looking at their clothes, can help me to look at, well, their face and how can I read what's going on? So is there a way to help them or serve them that comes out of knowing them? Just to start by trying to know them and then trying to say yes. And, if somebody's asking me a favor, somebody's got to go to the airport early in the morning, I can do that, and just trying to default to yes.
Oh, that's great. I'd like to pivot a little bit now at this point, and I know that there's lots of questions, and so you can keep putting your questions in the comments if you want. We'll definitely go back and read through those comments afterwards. But want to make an announcement and then talk about what's coming up. The big announcement that I sort of want to let people know about, actually, maybe let's do this first. Why don't we talk about forgiveness? So we're going to take a little break from the daily teachings because you actually need to rest and spend some time refilling the tank. And then we're going to come back in a couple weeks and start into a new series. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what we're going to be talking about? You mentioned it just a second ago.
Yeah, I think it'll launch in about 2.5 weeks, and it's on forgiveness.
Yeah.
And I am particularly excited about this one because Tim and I just chatted yesterday with a man named Everett Worthington. You'll hear more about him, and he will be on the show. I never know what to call this, so he'll be on the show. And he's maybe the leading researcher on the topic of forgiveness and has created a process that is just incredibly concrete and helpful. And for me, having gone through a difficult season of life, I have known for 3.5 years that I've had real work to do on the forgiveness front, but just not been ready to do it. And I'm kind of in the thick of that right now. And so this one is very, very personal. I won't talk, obviously, a lot about details of personal life stuff, but going through that journey for me will inform a lot our doing it together. I don't think there's anybody who gets very far in life where you don't have issues, where all the complexities of forgiveness. Is it always right to forgive? How do you forgive somebody that doesn't think they need forgiveness? How do I sort out what's my fault and what's your fault? What does it actually mean to forgive somebody? What about when I don't feel forgiving? What when they're not a safe person? Lots of stuff that I think we all need help with. So I'm very, very excited about dealing with this one. And it really will be focused on forgiveness. So this will be one of those where the invitation will be do the work.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, we're excited about that. I'm looking forward to it myself. Here's just a little, let's see if this works. This is what's coming up. We've got forgiveness kind of starting at the end of September, October. And then we have our first in-person get-together gathering November 4th. And that's going to be in San Jose. We'd like you to RSVP. You can do that at becomenew.com/featured. There's a button there that you can RSVP. And we're only going to share, I haven't told you this, John, or checked with you, so hopefully it's okay. But I'm only going to share the location with those who RSVP and say I want to come. So we're not going to broadcast the location out on all of our videos and all that. But if you sign up, RSVP, say, I'm planning to come, then we're going to tell you.
And Tim, that's an evening event, right?
It's an evening event, 7 p.m., San Jose. And then, John, you're speaking the next morning at a church in the area, Westgate Church. Yep. So that's going to be awesome. And we're looking forward to that. So that's kind of what's coming up. And then we're going to do an Advent series in December. And then we're working on preparing something for January, Spiritual Formation 101. We won't get too deep in the weeds on that, but I know personally a lot of friends who are followers of Christ that have never really heard about spiritual formation or don't understand what those terms mean. So I'm excited about that. We're going to do a quick hitter on what is spiritual formation, and it's going to be good. Another thing to announce. Yeah, Nancy, it looks like you have something to say.
No, I'm waiting. You finish.
Well, the other thing to announce is we released a new feature on our website today, and it is a little Become New chat bot. I know everyone's got a chat bot, right? But we had a friend who, for fun, reached out and said, hey, I follow Become New. Could I use John's talks to basically create an online AI entity that you could interact with, ask questions about all the previous episodes, or ask really any question at all? And so I'm going to see if this works, but I have a little video. I played around with it this morning. Let's see. So you can definitely go to our website and check that out. I thought that was funny about apparently I'm the only one.
That's amazing.
This is a lot of what I do. I'm sitting by myself, editing these things, just giggling to myself, and then you just release it to the world and see.
And that's crazy. And that's just artificial intelligence applied to what we're doing at Become New, using the content generated here to come up with answers to questions.
That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, that's all that I've got today. Excited about forgiveness and that series coming up. John, Nancy, thank you so much. John, thank you for just pouring out every day, spending that time. Yeah. And
two loose ends and a thought. Israel and then Doug from New Jersey, great to see you. Shauna, I love that you said you feel comfortable here because it is the fellowship of the withered hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tim, really what you were saying right now, I know you guys know this, but watching John every day get up early and spend the whole day reading and synthesizing and talking with me about how excited he is when these ideas all come together. He is loving what he's doing.
And I love getting to do it with Tim.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And all of you, you are just a part of our lives in a much deeper way than you would have any idea.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks everybody for joining. We'll stick around here for a few minutes to interact with you on the comments. But that's it. That's all we got. That's my agenda. It's done.
Okay.
Done.
Boom.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tim. That's
Bye,
great.
guys.
That's so much fun. Yep. Yep.
I just realized that when I showed that example video, I think that our audio dropped, so they couldn't actually hear us.
Yeah. So that's why they didn't think it was funny, because they couldn't hear you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is there like where you are, when you do that and those answers come up, there's not sound attached to that, is there?
No.
Yep. No, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Really great series, John. Honestly,
So good.
it's just, man, so much good stuff. Lots to revisit there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite episode, John? Was there one that you were like?
It's a good question.
I loved the one that was on Zest.
Yes, that was great.
I think that was the one that had like the Teddy Roosevelt stuff and that idea that there's not a word that's the opposite of trauma. And then kind of thinking through, trauma is one event that has a permanent, difficult, negative impact on somebody's life. And then think, resurrection. Actually, there is an opposite word.
Yes.
So that was a wonderful, thinking about that one was a real gift. I love that.
Yeah. That's really good.
Somebody just wrote in there, Tim, sometimes you can be funny without sound. So this is good. That's good.
Humor was not in my top strengths. I'm kind of and always have been the guy who just laughs at the funny person. Like I'm great
enjoy humor. Yeah.
I am a great person to have as like a +1 if you are funny.
That's good to know.
All the time at you. With
Hilarious.
you.
Angela, yes, it'll be at the Saratoga campus for Westgate.
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Wow. So good, Tim.
Yeah, really good.
Great group of people.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, should we sign off?
Thank
Okay.
you.
And Britt for us.
Yep.
I will. All right. Love you guys.
Okay.
Love you,
Love you, Tim.
Tim.
Love you,
Bye.
everybody. Bye-bye.